when I talk about my dad, my kids, oh, my kids don't know him, you know?
Yeah. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. Now, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we also believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I am so grateful and I'm humbled that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. Listen, today we've got another incredible episode for you, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast. My friends, you are in for a treat today. And just so you know, before we jump into this episode, I want to let you know that we have a special thing we're going to do at the end of the episode. We're actually going to be able to hear from Greg, one of his spoken word pieces, which is beautiful. I listened to it, brought me to tears, about fatherhood. You are going to want to hang out to the end of this episode to hear this tune. Or this poem. It is just incredible. So let's get into it. We have my friend Greg Denie here, and Greg is a spoken word poet. He's a motivational speaker, a mental wellness advocate. Greg Denie is a renowned spoken word poet and a motivational speaker with a mission to inspire and empower students. With a powerful blend of poignant poetry and motivational speaking, Greg tackles critical issues such as mental wellness, self-esteem, and resilience, providing students with the tools that they need to thrive. For years, Greg has been captivating audiences with his unique storytelling ability, weaving words that resonate deeply with young minds. His performances are not just about words. They are about creating a safe space for students to explore their emotions, confront their challenges, and discover their inner strength. Now, listen, I know Greg personally. I've been to his shows live. Dude is phenomenal. And just even my wife danced in the group that he led for years. And so a lot of cool personal connections here. But listen, Greg, thank you for being on the show today. Looking forward to having this conversation, brother.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Good stuff. So Greg, you got a lot going on. I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of what you got happening, because I know there's going to be a lot of people listening maybe who haven't heard of you yet or haven't heard of your stuff. And so tell us a bit about your story, man. So, I'm talking going from you're passionate about mental health. You're passionate about all those different things. What made you go in this trajectory? Like, what's your genesis story from the ground up, bro?
Yeah, it's been an interesting life journey. I don't know if I would have picked it for myself, and definitely not how I envisioned my life going. Doing spoken word poetry and speaking, even in school, my English teacher, I saw him a couple years ago, and he's like, Greg, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that this is what you would have become and done with your life. But yeah, my story kind of starts, when I was, a young boy. Grew up here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Incredible parents and pretty normal childhood, big into sports. It's funny because I'm wearing a baseball hat, but not really into baseball, but all the other sports. And yeah, basically kind of what transpired in my life was at about 10 years old, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. He had a major surgery, taking a bone from his leg and putting it into his jaw and crazy stuff like that. Went through rounds of chemo. About 6 months later, they found more cancer, and 6 months after that, my dad passed away. And I was 11 years old at that time. And my dad he was my hero, man. He was my soccer coach. He was my dad. He would barbecue in the backyard where we had our basketball court, and so him and I would shoot hoops together while he was barbecuing, and we went on family camping trips. And yeah, you're 11-year-old boy. Your dad is your hero. He's your everything. And watching him waste away. My dad was a bigger dude, 230 pounds. Watching him waste away. He passed away at 90 pounds. Um, just it wrecked me, and I became a very um I it's funny because I say that I became a very angry person. I think if people had met me at that time, they wouldn't have thought that I was angry, but I had all these inner emotions. And my mom took me to see a counselor, and again, at 11 years old, I didn't know how to express what was going on inside of me. And so I just internalized things. And I always use this expression, hurt people. And I was a hurting kid. And so I just hurt people. And I wasn't a physical, I would say I wasn't a physical bully. I was an emotional bully.
Mm,
I like to use my words to tear people down, to push people away. And one of the biggest grievance points for me was seeing other boys my age with their dads. It would so I get emotional now. It would wreck me. I would grieve that relationship. I would grieve. I'd see them, their dads at their soccer game, and I'd be like, I'd get angry because I'm like, man, that's not my story anymore, and so I kind of my life kind of went on a trajectory where I was trying to seek approval from the cool kids and started getting into skateboarding, and all the guys there that at that point they were smoking weed and doing stuff. And I never got into that stuff because I knew my mom would kick the crap out of me if I ever touched that stuff. My mom, like, and because my mom was still in my life, I was like, I didn't want to disappoint her, but I just became this like rebellious kid, angry at everybody and everything, and wanted to do my own thing, and went down that path for many years until just kind of started taking a look at my life and realizing that I'm like, man, I'm like, I could allow this one moment to dictate my future, to dictate the rest of my life. And I had friends, and I had, but I'm like, but inwardly I was so angry, and just in this kind of darkness and in this pain and this brokenness. And I was like, man, I don't want this. I don't want to live like this. And so I started just doing some, like, yeah, some deep inner kind of healing work. I found a faith in God and started pressing into that, and just started to like realize, man, words are powerful, and even the words we speak to ourselves. And I think that's the one that I was telling myself, like, you're broken, you've lost this relationship, you're angry, you're never, and I was speaking negative things to myself. And I think when I started to change my mindset of what lies I was telling myself, it actually changed the way and what I was speaking to others.
mm,
And I realized, I'm like, man, I want to make a difference with my life. And it's so interesting because I think that I started making this change in who I was and encouraging people and lifting people up. And then all of a sudden what happened was all of these people were being brought into my life who had also lost their parents, who had also their parents were going through cancer treatments, whose parents had just passed away. And I was coming alongside them and just getting a chance to encourage them and speak life into them and be like, this isn't the end. This doesn't have to be, your story doesn't have to be the pain and the brokenness. And just realizing that in life, man, we have the ability to choose what we do with negative situations, with adversity. And so that kind of just set me up to say, man, I want to use my life to make a difference in others. I want to use my life to help people recognize the reality that, yeah, sometimes life's really hard, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes we're handed things that we don't know how to deal with. But in every situation, we get to choose how we respond to that. And so that set my course. I became a youth pastor for a while. I quit that after a few years, realizing that I'm like, I wanted to be where kids were. I wanted to be in students' lives. And so that's what led us to start our organization called Legacy One, where we go into schools and we bring creative arts into the schools as a way for kids to talk about mental wellness and to address some of those issues.
mm. Wow, man. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a part of that story with us, brother. I think there's a lot of people who would be listening and that would resonate with whether they had a dad who was present and passed away, or parents got divorced, or maybe the father was just never a part of the picture. I think there's a lot of men who can resonate with those feelings of hurt. And the role of a father is incredibly important. Obviously, I mean, we're biased, but there is a certain significance that carries weight. And, I didn't plan to ask you this, but I was talking to a friend of mine who lost his father a couple of years ago, and he was talking to me yesterday, and just a couple of days ago, just moved to tears. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and he said, "Man, I'm still." It was 2020 actually, so no, it was 5 years ago. And he's like, "It just still hits me like a wave, every now and then." And so, you shared with us a little bit about what you struggled with as a child. And if you don't mind, man, like as a father now, because I know you have some kids, and now there's been some distance, obviously between your father passing away and now. But if you don't mind, man, what is something that you still kind of struggle with or wrestle with, or something you still kind of carry? Maybe there is nothing, but when you think about any kind of feelings about your father passing and the life that you've lived, and now as you becoming a father, is there anything you kind of still wrestle with a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can resonate with your friend in the reality. I mean, I'm 38 years old now. It's been what, 27 years since my dad passed away, and there are days that I still get emotional. Just, January 24th was when he passed away, and that day is always a significant day in my life. I still grieve it, so I definitely carry that. That's, I don't know. I don't think it'll ever go away. I could shed tears right now thinking about it. And I think that the biggest thing, yeah, I think the big thing you grieve is still that relationship. Like again, now again, I'm married. I have an amazing father-in-law. My mom is remarried. I got, still got men in my life, and my kids have their grandparents. But there's still that grieving of like, when I talk about my dad, my kids, oh, my kids don't know him, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's still a reality, right? Where it's like, when it's a relationship that has molded and shaped who I am, that I don't have. Even my, to be honest, my wife never met my dad, like, so even in that, you grieve that it's like this person that holds so much significance and love in your heart, you can't share that with the people you love.
Mm. Yeah. That's tough, man. And thank you for trusting us on the show with this, man. It's obvious to see your heart in this, man. And I just want to say, I know it's tough, I know it's hard, but um, thank you for using that story to change hundreds, thousands of lives. With this message of hope and resilience and overcoming grief and mental, other different challenges, anxiety, stress, other mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can make the best of these situations. And you're doing that. You're turning
Yeah.
that trash into something. You're turning that trash into treasure. And so good on you, dude. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Love
I think that, like, get my eyes all red and puffy to start this thing off. No, I think again, I live my life. There is a verse in the Bible that I live by, which is, suffering produces perseverance,
that.
perseverance, character, and character, hope.
Mm,
And it's what we teach the students. We say, you know what? As much as it's hard to understand, the pathway to hope is actually through suffering. It's through hardship. And when we sit in that and allow it, and again, this is where some people can allow that to turn to bitterness and rage and anger, and that's what I did at first. And some people can persevere through the hard things, persevere through the pain, persevere through the adversity, and it shapes in them this character, and that character is what produces the hope that we stand on, right? And so helping people understand that it's like, again, there's a pathway to hope, and the unfortunate thing is oftentimes it starts with suffering.
mm. It does. It does. Man, I legitimately had this conversation with a client this morning where I said, we were talking about this very same thing. He was having a hard time with just feeling, it's just some things that he was struggling with. And I had said, listen, man, and this is a quote I read a little while ago that I haven't been able to shake. I don't even remember who said it, but And it was very simple. It just said, you can either quit or you can keep going, but both are hard. So choose the pain, right?
Yeah.
Both are painful, both are hard. But at the end of the day, true contentment, true peace, true hope is on the other side of
Yeah.
that suffering, is on the other side of that um, adversity you're facing, right? And so the sooner you can let go of that narrative that everything should be easy, the sooner you can let go of that false belief that like life should be happy and simple, the sooner you will be content and at peace when you stop looking for that around every corner. Yeah, there's moments of happiness, there's moments of bliss, there's moments of that. But that's not the point, right? Especially when I talk to guys, and of course, me and you, I know I can speak to you, a lot of the guys listening, you can be a little bit more, I would say, a little less tender, with the men. But honestly, that's the key. It's how are you responding when you face the storm? Lean in versus leaning away. Sorry, I'm preaching now, but I know I'm so thankful you shared that because it's been something that's just been a part of so many of my conversations lately, and it just seems like I don't know whether it's our inputs, media, or what it is, but it just seems like we're being inundated with this false fantasy that life should be simple and life should be easy. It's just not the way it is. So,
Absolutely. And I think that we also, I think of the way our society has kind of is shifted is that we not only do we think it should be easy, is that when it gets hard, we have so many numbing techniques that we flip open our phone, we go to video games, we go to, you name it, we go to alcohol, we go to numb the hard parts of life instead of what you just said, sitting in it and growing and realizing, okay, this is an opportunity to form in me a perseverance and a character, right? And I think that's what's hard. And I think we see that in culture. And I think, us men, we fall victim to that reality of being like, when life gets hard and we think it should be easy, well, then we just turn to a vice and we're like, well, I'm going to just numb until I get through this season. I'm going to numb until this goes away, and we don't actually grow through it.
hmm yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And what a lesson to model for our kids, as well, and to teach them. It's brilliant. And I think that's the way we can course correct all of this is by modeling this as fathers, as husbands, right? And this is this is actually the exact reason why I launched this whole platform, this Dad Nation movement. It was because of the fact that I feel like there's a place for men to step into and teach our kids, right? So, hey, great segue, actually. Um, when we're talking about all this kind of stuff, and you said you have two kids, right?
Yeah, I got a 9 and a 4-year-old.
Now, we talked a little bit before, of course, we were recording this, a couple weeks back, and you shared with me sort of some of your convictions and your passions around why it's so important to show up on a whole different level as a father for your kids. And so let's rehash that maybe a little bit. But as you think about that from your perspective as a father who had a great father, you know, um, why do you think personally it's so important to be your best for your family?
Oh man, such a valuable conversation I think to have is this reality. I say I actually I look back at my dad passing away, and I'd say I'm in a season of gratitude in the sense that it has made me so present to my kids. I think because I understand and have a deep conviction that life is not guaranteed, that we are not guaranteed the next breath, that life can shift very fast. It has made me very appreciative of every moment I have with my kids, and made me more intentional in those moments to be like, I don't want to come home from work and have all these things in my headspace that are taking me away from being present with them. I don't want to have phones at our dinner table when we're having conversation. I don't, so it's made me just be so intentional with that. And yeah, I think for me as a father, trying to model this stuff with my kids and have those opportunities to like I said, be intentional. And so there's little things like I drive my son to school every morning, and it's a short drive, 2, 3 minutes, and I consider it kind of like our sacred space. It's just me and him, and just him and I just have conversations, and I ask him, what he's excited about for the day, and I ask him what and we've been doing a few things lately where I'm like even setting some goals, being like, hey man, like I'm like my son's name is Z, and I'm like Ezekiel, I'm like Z. We talk about being kind to others. What is something you could do today to be kind
Mm,
to one of your classmates? And we'll set like a little goal for him for that day to be like, okay, I want you today to recognize what someone else in your class has done that was really good and just compliment them. Just be like, hey, buddy, you did really good on that test. Good job. Like just again, just taking these moments to like help my son understand how to become compassionate and how to become kind. And so it's moments like that that I'm like, oh, these are so they're special. And again, my son is turning 10 here right away. And I'm like, man, he's the exact age I was when my dad was first diagnosed with cancer. I'm like,
mm,
it has made me just become really aware of the moments we have, and again, he's getting to that age where psychology would say he's going to start to bond with friends more than he does with parents. And so it's like I'm really these next couple of years, like I'm really leaning into this. Like, okay, I'm still probably his number one voice and influence in his life, and it's like this is the time to start shaping that. And then I've got a young daughter at home, and same thing. I'm like, my job as a dad is to model for my daughter what I want her to find in a husband one day. I want her to see a dad that loves her and protects her. I want her to see her dad who is, going to fight for her and treat her with respect and dignity, knowing that one day she's going to be out there and there's going to be dudes that are going to be hitting on her. And I want her to be like, no, I'm looking for like a dad. I'm looking for a man like my dad, someone that's going to respect me and fight for me. And so even knowing that, like how special it is to just have those moments, and that's where I say being really intentional, where I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it. Okay. I'm not perfect in any capacity, but there's just a couple of areas where my wife and I try to be, like I said, the dinner tables, again, I think the dinner table is so special in a family. I think that sitting down to eat a meal together. And again, we know if anyone read Anxious Generation, that book, it actually, I think it was in that book, it talked about that kids who had regular dinners with their family, their mental health was just way better than families that ate supper around a TV
mm.
that just came and go and never ever sat down together or had technology at the table or texting each other. And that's again, even I know our son is 10 and or about to be 10, and his big thing is a lot of his friends are starting to get cell phones, and we've been prepping him for almost a couple of years now, being like, hey dude, I just want you to know, like, you're going to be one of the last ones in your class to have a cell phone. I'm like, it's just not a tool that I'm okay just handing over to you. And I'm like, I just want you to know. I'm like, again, this is this Anxious Generation book, but it's like, I'm like, I want you to just be a kid for as long as you can be a kid. I want you to just to discover the world and with wonder and awe, and not just, oh, Wikipedia says this. Oh, the answer is this. Oh, and so there's, like I said, there's just a couple of things that my wife and I are pretty intentional about, and walking with our kids. Both our kids are night owls. They both, it's just crazy. Like it's bedtime and they both just boom, energy. They want to jump off the walls. And I'm like, but my son, like that's what actually the time where he talks the most. He comes home from school. How was school? Good. Okay. Then we're lying there in bed, and all of a sudden it's like, Dad, this happened, and this happened, and this person did this, and this, and I'm like, one, I think it's just he's trying to stay up later. But two, it's like these are actually the moments where he wants to connect with us. And so again, and this is advice I got from an older dad. He has three kids, and his youngest now is kind of 13, 14. And he was like, man, my youngest will still ask me to lay with her at night, like this, to lay with her until she falls asleep. And he's like, dude, I know that moment is fleeting. That time where she still wants her dad to be there with her when she falls asleep is going to come and go. And he's like, I'm just going to milk it for as long as possible. And I'm the same way now. I'm just like, you know what? I'm like, again, I think sometimes when it comes to raising kids, let's be honest, we can get frustrated, we can be overwhelmed. Our kids can annoy us, they can get on our nerves. I get that. And there's times where I say it like this, we want to wish seasons away. Oh, I can't wait till my kid can do this. Oh, I can't wait till they're more independent. Oh, I can't wait till they go to bed at night and they don't need me. Oh, I can't wait. And I'm just like, I refuse to go there. I just refuse. I'm like, you know what? I know that each stage of their development is so precious and it's gone like that. And I'm like,
Mm.
so I refuse to be like, oh, I can't. Right now, it's the car seat. Like, getting my 4-year-old into her car seat, especially in the winter. I just hate that. I'm like, there's moments I'm like, I can't wait till she's not in a car seat anymore. And then I'm like, nope. I actually just really enjoy that. I get to pick her up every moment. Every time we get in the car, I get to pick her up and put her in her car seat. And again, it makes you appreciate those small things. And when you've lost a parent, when you've lost someone in your life, like I did, that's kind of what it does it's just made me so thankful for the little things, the mundane things, the things that I think sometimes we take for granted, that I've just become so appreciative of and grateful for, and just been like, yeah, this sucks sometimes getting her strapped into our car seat, but I'm just gonna appreciate this moment. I'm gonna
Mhm.
appreciate this season in her life and be with her in it.
Mhm. Yeah, man, because you know what? There will come a day when you pick her up for the last time,
Yeah,
right? And we don't know
absolutely.
when that day is and how old they'll be, but just the idea of like, there's gonna be that last time, and we better really cherish each moment. You know, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. When it was sunny out, we're sitting on the back deck, and we were just talking, and I had read some quote about being older and wanting the days back. I mean, Corey Asbury has this on "These are the days that we'll want back."
Mm.
But thinking forward to being 85 years old when you're at that point, and I was saying to her, I was like, when I'm 85, I would be willing to trade everything that I own to come back to today and live this day, right? And so that is a powerful thought, and really tunes me in to be more present, because it's like I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get this day back. And in a few years from now, I'm going to wish with everything I had that I could just come back into this day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely, like, my wife and I, we're 99% positive we're done with having kids. So both of my kids are adopted, so we adopted our kids. So we're pretty confident we're done, and so it does even that you're like, man, with our daughter, we're like, this is the last stage we'll ever have diapers. This is the last stage we'll ever have, and we're like, and it does, you're right. It makes you really just aware of how precious those moments are.
Awesome, Greg. So we've been having a lot of great conversation around fatherhood and our convictions and what we think is so important. But now I also would love to talk about this organization that you lead, Legacy One, because you're doing some incredible work and helping kids with mental resilience and all those different things. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit more about exactly what you guys do and how you help kids practically? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in 2010, my wife and I and a couple of really good friends founded an organization called Legacy One. And the whole purpose and intention was we wanted to go into schools using the creative arts, poetry, music. We got a DJ. We used to have dancers. We all aged out of the dancing phase, but we now have like a 20-foot screen. We got lights. We got a sound system. We transform a school gym into a concert hall, and we use our art and our stories as a way to inspire students. That's truly what the presentation is about, to inspire them to realize, that reality, that they can choose hope. I speak at the end of every assembly, and that's my challenge to them, is to understand that hope is an action word. It's not a synonym with wish. Oh, I hope my life gets better. Oh, I hope the situation changes. No, no. Hope is about changing your mindset. It's about seeing things from a different perspective. And there are things that we can actively do, like gratitude, that will actually change things in our mental being that leads us towards hope. So we have this really cool assembly presentation that we do. It's called Beautiful Struggle, and it talks about the struggles within, talks about the struggles handed to us, and then it talks about the struggle to hope. So that's that presentation. Then we also have a workshop that we follow up that the inspiration with now, okay, let's get some practical tools in the hands of students. And so we have a workshop called Flip the Script. So it's when life hands you a script, how do you flip it into something positive, right? And so we help kids develop a life mission statement. And this is powerful stuff. We kind of walk them through identifying what their strengths are, some of their personality things. And then by the end, they put together this statement. And this, it's like, I am courageous and kind and caring. And I'm going to get on all the K sounds here, but they kind of identify three things and they're like, and when I face adversity, this is how I'm going to overcome them. This is how I'm going to focus on it. This is how I'm going to turn it into something positive. And it's been cool. It was a mom who was a teacher in a school, and her son went through this workshop, and she had him take this statement and put it on his bedroom wall. And we ran into her like 3, 4 months later, and she's like, I got to tell you guys, when my son comes home from school, if he's had a bad day, if he's, just feeling off, you can just tell. She's like, I make him go to his room and read that statement. And she's like, he comes out a completely different kid. He comes out energized and focused again and recognizing his strengths and recognizing his ability to choose to be positive, to choose to overcome. And so that's really powerful. And at the end of every workshop, we put the mic up on stage and we invite kids to come and share with their class, which even that, again, we've had teachers who've like, that kid has never said a word in class, and they just gone front of everyone and shared this life mission statement. This is who I am, So it's just really powerful in that capacity. And then now, actually during COVID, we obviously couldn't tour. We weren't in schools. We actually were able to really quickly turn all of our stuff into a digital thing, and we offered schools our show and workshop as a digital presentation. But then we developed. And again, it was kind of came out of the schools were asking for more. They were like, man, your guys' content is it's engaging. The students are listening. They want more. Like, what else can you guys do? And so we sat down and we actually wrote a 10-week character and resilience building program. And it is called The Future Belongs To. And it is done digitally in that we teach it on the video, but a teacher in the classroom is actually the facilitator of it. Every student gets a workbook. Every session talks about a different kind of unique. So the future belongs to the brave. The future belongs to the fear-facing. The future belongs to the unique, to the grateful. And every chapter, every session ends with a real-world application. Okay, how do you take this thought into your real world? And it's funny because it's one of my favorite chapters now. When we were first developing it and our team came up with this idea, I was the one that was like, this is a bad idea, guys. Kids aren't going to do this. It's not going to work, not going to be successful. But the real world application to the future belongs to the grateful is that they write out a letter to someone in their life who has impacted them and just thank them, just express gratitude to that person. And I was the doubter that was like, kids aren't going to do this. This is not a good idea. And it is the chapter that the most kids talk about after the program. When we do a post survey with them and we ask them what chapter impacted you the most, they're like the grateful chapter. They're like, I wrote a letter and I gave it to my mom and we had a 3-hour conversation about the things that she struggled with in life. And I took it to my grandparents and it's like, it's opening up conversations. And it's just kids learning how to express gratitude. That's all it is. It's kids starting to like, man, there's things in my life that I can be thankful for. And again, we teach them through that session of like all the things that we can be grateful for and the power of daily just recognizing that. And again, there's so much science behind just the power of gratitude and what that does to our mental health. So those are the 3 things we do in schools. We got our 1-hour assembly, we got our follow-up workshop, and then we've got our 10-week character and resilience building program that we offer schools.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, friend, thank you so much for tuning in to the Dad Nation podcast today. And because you're here, I want to give you a free gift for listening. And this is called Igniting Intimacy. 44 questions to ask your wife to connect deeply and spark intimacy. maybe you're watching this and you just feel like conversation is just growing real boring in your marriage. Or maybe you've heard from your wife that she feels like she's married to a robot, or that we don't ever talk anymore, or you don't talk about how you feel. If you've heard any of these things from your wife or felt any of these things, you need to download this free gift for you, because listen, the key to connection with your wife is through quality conversation and quality questions. Okay, I promise this will not disappoint. So check out the show notes below on YouTube or whatever streaming platform you're listening on, or you could just head to dadnationcode.com/intimacy for that free gift for you, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Well, listen, if you're watching or listening to the show, I'm going to have his links below in the comments. If you are in the education system or even a parent who would like to pitch this to your kid's school, then please connect with him. I know I've seen these guys in action, and they put off an incredible performance. And so, yeah, man, do it. So awesome, Greg. Okay, so a couple more things. I want to hear this poem. All right. I want to hear it again. But before we jump into it, and then we'll come back after just to wrap up the episode. But before we jump into it, can you just give us a little bit of the context behind this poem, why you wrote it, what it means to you?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite poems I've ever written. And the concept came out of when my dad passed away at his funeral. As his casket was being lowered to the grave, I was standing with my uncle, and he said, "Greg, go and take 2 roses off your dad's casket and take one to your mom and one to your sister." And so I took 2 roses, one for my mom, one for my sister. And my mom has them still in her house to this day. She got them frozen or whatever she did. And when my wife and I adopted our son in 2015, I started processing this reality of becoming a dad, and realizing I'm like, I didn't have my dad to ask questions. I didn't get a chance to ask my dad, like, what was it like the first time you met I have an older sister. So the first time you held my sister, like, what was that moment? What was that experience? I was wrestling through this reality that I'm like, my dad never taught me how to shave, and I still haven't learned. Like, my dad never taught me how to maintain a home or how to fix a car. And I started realizing, I'm like, man, I've got all these questions on what it means to be a dad, and I don't have my dad to ask them. And so I wrote a poem called 2 Roses. And the concept is that it's that the 2 roses was lifted off his casket, and I had all these questions, and I didn't know who to turn to ask them, And so that was kind of what inspired the poem, was just this, again, it was this grieving process of, man, wanting to ask my dad so many questions, just not knowing where I could go to do that.
All right. Well, hey, if you're listening, if you're driving, pull over. If you're walking around, go sit down, because you're going to want to take this in for what it is. All right, Greg, let's get into it, brother.
Two roses lifted from a closed casket. Questions run deep, but my young mind didn't know to ask it. A simple goodbye on the day you would die. Didn't know it would be our last. I would have sat at your side, thanked you for the times you called me son, but that time is done. I heard they sung hymns as you exhaled your last breath. But death was not a goodbye, just to see you later. 2 roses lifted from a closed casket. Questions run deep, but my young mind didn't know to ask it. I would have asked how you and Mom met. I'm willing to bet she fell in love with your laugh. It could fill a room with its resounding boom. Soon, a bun in the oven, as my sister would be your first gift from heaven. And I'd ask what you felt that first moment you held her. Did tears fill your eyes? Did you realize the magnitude of the moment? And I would have asked you to show me how to shave, or how to be brave. Although you did that in facing the grave, I would have asked you how to maintain a home, how faith is shown and love is grown. But Dad, I learned those things on my own. And I would have asked if you were scared, because hell, I was. And I would have asked you to stay for one more day, one more barbecue in the backyard, shooting hoops by the back door. But now I know, time will never heal the hole you left in our lives. And I can cry 1,000 times, it won't bring you back, I won't hear that laugh. But now, as I step into fatherhood myself, and I watch my son play, laugh, dance, and I sit with the chance to wrap my arms around him and tell him, son, I love you.
I love you.
I've come to see that being a father is a fight against the daily distractions that try to pull me away, to lay aside the worries of a busy day and focus on the fight, to overcome my selfishness and pride and decide to show up. That's half the battle, showing up, be present, see heaven in the smile of your child. 2 roses lifted from a closed casket. Questions run deep, but I no longer need to ask them. For you answer the greatest question of all. To be called a dad is not a right, it's a privilege. That every moment matters. For when the earth below you shatters and all you're left with is memories, it's those moments that make melodies that sing to the soul. So know that these 2 roses remind me that life is what you make it. And Dad, you made it. So I pray that I live like you, that I laugh like you, that I love like you, that one day I too might be remembered like you.
Wow. Wow. So, so good. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for, again, turning, a tragic story into something beautiful and using that to help countless students and generations upon generations. And I know that you're not done. I know you're not short of life. You're not short of passion. You're not short of intensity. So I know that you're just warming up, bro. I know you have an incredible future with this poetry, with Legacy One. It's going to be so good, and I'm excited to see where you go. Last question before we wrap up this show. And now I ask every guest on this show this question, and I'm particularly excited to hear what your answer is, given your history and your experience. But I want you for a moment to just imagine that you have passed away, okay? And your wife and your kids, maybe they're a little bit older now, teenagers, they're sitting around the table. The ceremony's over. Everyone had left, and they're sitting around, and they're just talking about, Z is talking about Dad, the man that he was, everything that you taught him, and your daughter, and they're just reflecting on the father that you were to them. Mm. What are some things, and so, for example, maybe you've got this opportunity to be a fly on the wall and overhear the things that your children are saying about who you were as a dad and what you meant to them. What are some things that you would want them to say about who you were as a father to them?
Yeah, that's a unique question, and one that I feel like I've definitely thought about in that realm. And to me, I thought I would say that I don't think I have a long, complicated answer. I think that I'd want my kids and my wife and I want them to say a really simple thing, which is that, man, dad loved Jesus and dad loved us, and that he did everything he could to be, like I said, to be intentional with being in our lives and the modeling for us what that looks like. I think that's my greatest legacy is like I said, my faith and my family are my greatest legacy. And I would hope that they just sit around and tell stories of how I made them laugh and how I was there for them and protected them and showed them, that I modeled it is what's really important. And I didn't mention it earlier, but that is one of the things that I agreed about my dad, is that he didn't document a lot of his life. It was before iPhones and before, and my dad didn't journal. My dad didn't. And so I didn't have a lot of my dad's thought process. And one of the things that I've task myself with, again, being someone of faith, is I bought a set of Bibles that has a journal column in it, and I've been going through the Bible, writing my prayers and thoughts for my kids, which has just been, again, you talk about what do I want my kids to know about me, and what I want them to say. Like, I'd want them to understand like my perspective on life and faith and family, and my thoughts towards them and their future. And so that to me is really, again, that's one of my future forward things, where I'm like, man, one day I'm going to hand my kids a document of my prayers and my thoughts and my intentions, that they can look back on and be like, oh man, we knew who my dad was, and we knew who he was. We that my dad was not one person here and one person there, but my dad was, this is who he was.
I love that, man. Love that. Thank you for sharing. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because somebody mentioned that to me a little while ago it was like 6 months ago now. They were saying, what's really cool about having a podcast is that sounds kind of morbid, but they just brought it, like, if you die, your kids are going to be able to listen to your voice for hours.
Yeah.
And they're going to get to know what you were about. And they're going to know very clearly that you loved them with all your heart, and that you loved their mom, and that you were focused and determined and passionate. They're going to get to know their dad no matter what happens to you. And I thought, that's powerful. So along the same lines, Matt, I love that. I love that idea. Okay, last question, brother. Where can we find you? I know there are going to be people listening to this who just want to maybe grab this curriculum or book you guys for an assembly, or maybe just hear more of your stuff. Where can we find you on the internet? How can we support you guys?
Yeah, very simply, legacy1.ca, and one is spelled out ONE. Legacy1.ca. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We haven't done the TikTok yet, but one day we'll see. So they can find Legacy there. And then I'm on Instagram at Greg_Denie. Follow my personal stuff. But those are the two places you can find us.
Amazing. Well, if you're listening, as I said earlier, I'm going to have all the notes where you can contact Greg below in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever the case is. It'll all be there for you. Go check out his stuff. You will not be disappointed. Listen, Greg, thank you so much for being here. This has been a powerful conversation, brother, and looking forward to doing this again sometime. Wow, what an incredible episode. Listen, if you are watching on YouTube today, I want to hear from you, okay? Leave it in the comments below. What was the big takeaway for you? What was that big aha moment? And let's start the conversation. If you've listened to this episode and you've decided that you want help today, if you need coaching, if you need some resources, feel free to please reach out to me. My email is mitchell@dadnationco.com. My website is dadnationco.com. You can hit me up on Instagram @dadnationco. And I've got a ton of resources for you. I'm here to help you, support you in any way I can, and to serve you in a powerful way. So check those links. I'll have them posted below. But other than that, listen, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. Have an incredible week. We'll catch up soon.